This NFL podcast is sponsored by the freetvproject.org.
Live from Radio Row, it's Super Bowl week, and there's no better way to stay up to speed on the biggest week in football than with the Around the NFL podcast. Join me, Dan Hansis, and my buddies Mark Sessler and Greg Rosenthal for the latest news with just a touch of mirth.
Around the NFL is the place to learn all things football. We've got awards, the #1 football podcast in the world, 30-plus years of experience, and Rihanna is playing the Apple Music halftime show, guys. It doesn't get much better than this.
I've never heard Mark say the word Rihanna before. Hang out with us, talking football live from Glendale, Arizona all week long. Listen to Around the NFL on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the Never Too Old for a Good Spankin' podcast.
Put the hands up front. Stick that butt out. Stick it out.
Yes, sir.
I need a good spanking. I need a good spanking. I need a good spanking. I need a good spanking.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Never Too Old for a Good Spankin' podcast. I have brought back an old friend. Well, not an old friend. She's actually a newer friend. We've only known each other for... How long do you think we've known each other for at this point?
I think it's been maybe like 5 or 6 months.
Okay, now calm down because I'm not done introducing you. Okay, so a friend that I've known for about 5 or 6 months. I've had her on the podcast before. Without further ado, let me introduce to you right now, once again, Dr. Eve. That's your cue, Dr. Eve. Say something.
I didn't realize that I was supposed to say something. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Nice to be back.
You know, I got a lot of great compliments and comments about our episode that we did where you grilled me about spanking stuff, that I wanted to bring you back and talk about more spanking stuff.
I'm very excited.
And this time, it's not going to really be us asking each other questions. I mean, that may happen. But I'm just going to throw out a topic, and we are going to discuss.
Sounds good.
Are you ready to get started?
I am very ready.
Did you want to say anything before we do so?
I had fun doing the first one, so I really am very happy to be back.
I also had fun doing the first one. Although I don't like to answer questions, obviously I do like to talk.
You definitely like to talk, and I think that maybe you like answering questions a little more than you let on.
I don't mind when the question is easy to answer, but some of the questions I didn't particularly want to give much detail.
Well, that, of course, was by design.
I knew what you were doing, and you knew what you were doing.
Of course I knew what I was doing. I always know what I'm doing.
All right, Dr. Eve, let's get down to business.
Let's do it.
Now, you and I have talked on the phone quite a bit over the past 5 or 6 months that we've known each other.
Yes, we have.
And we have talked about this many times, about how spanking is a ridiculous concept.
It's completely and utterly ridiculous.
So one time, way back when, we're not exactly sure when it happened. Was it caveman time? Was it predating that? Who knows? We can't find the buried skeletons that can tell us the information that we seek. But somewhere at some time, someone said to someone else, "You have done something wrong, and I need to do something about it right now." And that person decided, I am going to take my hand and I am going to rapidly or slowly smack you on this area in back of you multiple times.
That's right. And I don't know if it was the first person who did this or if this came along later, but at some point that person said, I'm also going to lay you across my lap so that your head is down and your feet are down And the part of you that I'm about to slap over and over and over again is sort of raised high in the air.
Don't you think that developed over time? Like they were sitting there thinking, how can I make this easier for myself and give myself a better target to give this thing, you know what, let's call it punishment to this person that I'm doing this thing to.
This is so ridiculous. Yes, but what's interesting is that I think I'm not alone in feeling that what is so appealing about this is the ritual underlying all of it. It's not just the slapping, it's the whole ritualized nature. And so presumably that first caveman who did it to the first cave woman, there was no ritual to base it on because the ritual didn't exist yet. Somebody had to start these rituals, and I guess it is a little bit more convenient to put somebody over your lap. But at what point did this start to evolve into its own little ritual?
It really is the evolution of spanking. Although we don't know all the answers, we can only surmise.
Exactly. And I recently was in such a compromising position. And I had this thought go through my head, like, what am I doing? This is the most absurd thing. I am a grown woman. I have a job and a salary and a degree, and I'm laying across this man's lap and like, what on earth am I doing? This is ridiculous. But it was so enjoyable.
Do you think that back when the first, let's just say it happened with the cavemen and women, do you think that during this first thing that they were doing where they didn't have a name for it yet, you think that other people were standing behind saying in their caveman language, that's hot?
That's a good question. I think that this whole thing is pretty hardwired. So I don't know if the very first group of onlookers was thinking this is hot, but maybe one of them was, and maybe that guy was just more attractive to the ladies, and he ended up creating more children, and there began the genetic line. Who knows?
Do you think back then, because obviously they weren't as evolved as people were as time went on, do you think that back then that first person who did this thing was now designated the tribe smacker of butts?
It's very possible. Either that or all of the other people were looking on and thinking, oh, now I've got to go back to my cave and do that to my woman. And then it was like a social contagion kind of thing where one guy did it and then all the other guys said, hey, either that's effective because now that woman is in line, or B, that's really hot and now I've got to go do that.
Well, we probably shouldn't go any further on that subject, but with this spanking is ridiculous. Obviously, when you really come down to it, it is a ridiculous practice, although I love it and you love it, but it's evolved over time where they went to OTK, switches, people are actually making paddles specifically for this, belts, the wooden spoon, hairbrush. It's like we have this spanking thing. Now we need to make it better or actually worse for the person who's getting a spanking. So this is how it's evolved over time. But in general, it is just a ridiculous concept, although I wish I was the first one to come up with it.
Well, never mind. I'm not going to say that.
Oh, wait a second. Were you going to say something about my age?
No. No. Oh, somebody had to start this in the modern version that we use today. It started somewhere and somebody perceived it as not ridiculous, but very sexy and desirable. And it took off from there. And I love it. As you know, I do it. But every so often I have like this moment of lucidity or I just think, what am I doing? So stupid.
I actually think the same thing, but then I look down and say, well, it's not all that stupid.
Exactly.
We're going to move on to something else, unless you have something else you want to say about that.
I think I'm good with the cavemen.
I mean, it could be anything. Maybe you want to talk about spanking during the revolution.
I think I'll take a pass.
All right. I want to know, like, if we ever do have a zombie apocalypse where you have to be quiet or else it attracts attention with the zombies and they're going to come wherever they hear the noise. Do they move to more of just standard switchings because of the noise?
I really hope not.
Well, how else can you do it? If you're given a full-fledged spanking, you're going to attract that whole herd and you're going to have to fight off the zombies.
I know the spankies are going to have to be very, very quiet.
All right. Let us move on. I know you have a great story here about overhearing perceived spanking incidents in public.
Oh, yes, I do.
Well, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let you tell your story.
Okay, so many years ago, I moved to a new city, not the city that I currently live in, and I didn't know a soul. I moved there for my first job after graduate school. And my first night in my new apartment, I didn't have internet. I didn't know a soul. I was incredibly lonely. I was thinking, why am I living here? What have I done? And just to pass the time, I took my laptop and I went to kind of the main street in my neighborhood and I found a little coffee shop. And the name of the coffee shop is Caribou Coffee. They have many across the country. So these two men come and sit next to me. It's a 60-year-old man. I think he was around 60, and then a young man in his very early 20s. And at first I thought father and son, but it became clear quickly that this was not father-son. This was a couple out with each other. So I'm sitting there working on my laptop, but I can't help but overhear the conversation between these two men. And the younger one is like mercilessly teasing and sassing the older one. And as you know, I love good banter, and this was very good banter. And, you know, I'm kind of sitting there pretending to work on my laptop, but I'm really just enjoying what the younger one is doing to the older one. And all of a sudden, the older one gets very serious, and he says to the younger one, "Do we need to go home right now?" My ears just perked right up. And the younger one started getting nervous. And the older one said something like, "What did I tell you would happen if you did this again?" And the younger one at some point said something like, No, I'm sorry. We don't need to go home." And then the older one said to him, "Finish your drink right now. We're going home and we're going to have a conversation about this." And I thought, whoa, this neighborhood is going to be great.
Did you think about maybe following them home?
You know, I just allowed my mind's eye to envision what was probably happening when they got home.
That is a great conversation to be in the presence of when you're just sitting there and they're thinking you have no idea. And maybe they weren't even talking about spanking. Who knows?
Exactly. They might have been talking about something totally different, but to my spanky ears, it was unmistakable what was going to be happening, even though I might be wrong.
That is kind of great.
Have you had something similar?
I've had a few things that could kind of qualify with this. One time I remember I was in middle school and I was in a social studies class. I think I've told this story, but the two girls that sat in front of me and my friend Walt, we were right next to each other pretty much every single class, almost 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But I remember being in 8th grade and being in the social studies class, and the social studies teacher was the best looking teacher in the school. And the two girls that sat in front of us were to me, two of the best looking girls in our class. I'm talking our entire 8th grade class.
Wait. Let me guess. They wore the right kind of jeans.
Oh, that is a given. I don't even know why you thought you had to say that. Yes, they definitely wore the right kind of jeans. And I could tell whenever they walked into the classroom what their pockets would have on them whenever they turned around to sit down. I was fortunate enough to sit in back of them for that entire year in almost every class we went to. And I don't know how that happened. I don't know if it was divine intervention or I planned it myself, but that's how it happened. So I remember this one day we're in social studies class and they're talking about how things used to be in schools in the olden days. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about the different punishments that would happen, you know, the hitting on the hands or the knuckles and paddling and stuff like that. And it was towards the end of class. And she said that next time we come into class, she's going to demonstrate some of these punishments.
Oh.
And all I'm thinking about is, God, I hope it's on these two girls that are sitting in front of me. But next day that we came to class, it was as if she never said anything and never brought it up again. And I was a little deflated.
I wonder if she went home and kind of thought about it a little bit better and decided maybe I shouldn't do this.
Maybe they seemed a little too eager whenever she was talking about it because, you know, everyone was laughing.
Yeah, she probably was teaching and looked straight at you and thought, I better not.
She looked straight at me and I had I pretty much had an eternal erection throughout my entire 8th grade career, and which actually maintained itself all the way through high school.
And until age 54.
Yeah, exactly. Just not as impressive as it used to be.
So I think you might know I really love to cook. I love cookbooks and I own way too many of them. And there's this one cookbook author. His last name is Ottolenghi. I think he's based in England. And he's written something like 8 different cookbooks. I own them all. And the new one is called Ottolenghi Test Kitchen. And right on the cover, it says OTK. So I belong to a Facebook group for Ottolenghi lovers, basically, you know, people who are like groupies of his. And this woman the other day posted in the Facebook group that she went on to Amazon to order the book and she just typed in OTK and she got all of this like spanking related stuff. And she went on the group to say, does anybody know like what the connection is? And it was pretty amazing how many people then quickly explained to her that OTK also stands for over the knee. It was like observing this whole thing unfold in the wild, which you don't get that many opportunities to watch it happen in the wild.
I have little magnets that look like those stickers that go on the back of cars. And they say OTK, and I have one on my refrigerator. So anybody that asks me what that means that isn't a Spanko, I just say, oh, someone gave me that. We were out somewhere, and there was some boot company giving these away. OTK boots, that means like over the knee. And people don't question it any further. But if you're a Spanko, I think immediately when you see it, you know what's going to come to your mind.
Exactly. And it's a good way to signal to somebody who's over that, you know, maybe they should ask about it.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about spanking signals in a few, but I had one more story that I wanted to say. Back when I was a firefighter, and I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast because... Oh,
you've talked plenty about being a firefighter, and I love every second of it.
Not about being a firefighter, but this particular story. So we went to a call one time and it was something about a fire in an attic, and we got there and I climbed up in the attic and it wasn't really a fire. It was just a fan from their bathroom that the motor had burnt out and it was smoking a little bit. So I went up there and I took care of it, and all the other engines left except for mine. So it was me and a couple of my friends there, and the girl, the daughter of the people in the house, she was the only one home. And because I am a criminal justice major, I started to delve deeper after I saw what was in her kitchen. On the counter was a paddle shaped as a hand, and it said on it, Mother's Little Helper. So it was sitting there on the counter, and using my CJ mind, That's criminal justice to the layman. I saw on the wall next to that counter a hook that was missing something, which I deduced was that paddle on the counter.
Oh, it had been used.
This is what I'm thinking. Now, this girl that was home, she was a college student, so I'm assuming 18 to 24 tops, but she looked more like 19, 20-ish at the most. She was an only child, and it was just her and the parents. And someone felt the need to take this paddle off of that wall and did not put it back yet. And in my mind, I wanted to know who took it off and who it was used on.
You didn't ask?
I could not go that far because I would probably lose my job. I didn't even let her know that I knew about the paddle. But it all led back to it being used on her, whether it was by her parents, which I know is frowned upon, or whether it was by her boyfriend or maybe one of her girlfriends. We could only hope. I don't know, but with my criminal justice mind, that is what I came up with.
Uh-huh. I'm impressed that you resisted the temptation to ask even the most innocent thing about it, especially because I think you've mentioned that some of the guys you worked with kind of knew this about you to some degree.
And sometimes when we would be out at bars and I just, maybe not so subtly, brought up something about spanking to girls that we were talking to, some of those guys would get way too carried away and push the issue too fast.
Right.
So I have to be careful about what I do, when I do it, and who's around when I do it, because some people think that just because they know that I'm into spanking, that all of a sudden these girls are going to leap over our laps or something, and they push it a little too far and definitely way too fast.
Right, and you don't want to give these guys too much fodder to torment you with later.
Exactly. I don't want any of them seeing any of my videos. But do you have any more of those stories like that, or would you like to move on?
You know, the only thing that I'll add is that this happens once every so often because it's not that rare. You know, I'll just be walking down the street or I'll be in a store and I'll see a couple together. And let's say like the woman is standing in someone's way, but her back is to them and she doesn't realize that she's in someone's way. But the man sees it, so he takes her by the upper arm and kind of moves her over. And every time I see that, my stomach does this little flip of excitement. And I love it, probably because I love being taken by the upper arm. And so for me, that's kind of a signal of what's to come, even though it's totally innocent, you know, in the middle of a store. But I often wonder, maybe these two do this behind closed doors and he's just used to taking her by the arm.
And she just goes wherever he's taking her.
As one does.
I was walking out of the mall one time with a girl that I was dating, and out of nowhere, she just smacks me on the ass. And this old couple was behind us. And the old woman out loud said something like, "Way to go," or something like that. And I'm just like, oh man, she has no idea. She has no idea what she just did to this poor girl, because when I get her home.
That's great.
Namely gives you all the tools and support you need for HR, onboarding, payroll, benefits, and more. All in one connected and intuitive platform. Learn more at namely.com.
This is the smell of the leftover tuna fish sandwich you left in your lunchbox over the weekend in a wimpy trash bag.
Wimpy, wimpy, wimpy!
Blech! And this is the smell of that same sandwich in a hefty, ultra-strong trash bag.
Hefty, hefty, hefty!
Ah, smell the difference? Hefty Ultra Strong has Arm & Hammer with continuous odor control, so no matter what's inside your trash, you can stay one step ahead of stinky. And for bigger jobs, try the superior strength of Hefty Large Black Bags. This is the smell of the leftover tuna fish sandwich you left in your lunchbox over the weekend in a wimpy trash bag.
Wimpy, wimpy, wimpy!
Blech! And this is the smell of that same sandwich in a Hefty Ultra Strong trash bag.
Hefty, hefty, hefty!
Ah, smell the difference? Hefty Ultra Strong has Arm & Hammer with continuous odor control, so no matter what's inside your trash, you can stay one step ahead of stinky. And for bigger jobs, try the superior strength of Hefty Large Black Bags.
All right. So a couple weeks ago, I went to the Home Depot and I had to buy some rope. So as I get this rope, I'm walking around Home Depot looking for glue, and I'm kind of slowly just smacking my hand on the rope, but I didn't even notice I was doing it. And then I thought to myself, if you were walking around the store and doing this, someone who was a Spanko, this could signify to them that you are a Spanko also, or maybe they don't think you're a Spanko, but just like when you see these little things in public, they're probably thinking, oh, look at that guy. He has no idea what he's doing for me right now.
Exactly.
So what are some subtle things that you can do as a Spanko in public to signify that you're in the club?
That's a good question. All right. Well, so I run, and I hate running, but I do it anyway. And at the end of my run, if I don't stretch, I end up having some pretty bad pain. So I make sure to stretch really well at the end. I run in a park where I live, and a couple of times I've been stretching my hamstrings, and some guy has walked by and made a comment. And that could certainly, especially for someone who enjoys being spanked, that's certainly one way of kind of signaling that you're in the club. But I think my inclination is to do subtle little things with someone I know and maybe am attracted to, because I feel a little bit more comfortable dropping the hints with someone I'm familiar with. So I have a colleague. I've known him for a long time. He's tall. He's good looking. We get along really well. And I've always had a little bit of a crush on him. And we're around the same age. Maybe he's a few years older than I am. And he lives in a different city, but we see each other at our annual conference that we go to. And every year we get together and we go for a drink somewhere. And the last time that we went to a conference, we communicated over text that we were going to get together for a drink on a particular night. And he said, meet me in the lobby at 8 p.m. And there are 2 exits in the lobby. So there's one where there's a Starbucks at that exit, and then there's another exit that's close by, but there's no Starbucks there. So he said, meet me in the lobby at 8 p.m. at the exit with the Starbucks. So I purposefully went to the exit without the Starbucks at 8 p.m. And I could see him waiting for me, and I just waited, and he eventually saw me and came over, and he said, I thought I said the exit with the Starbucks. And so I looked at him in a very flirty way, and I said, well, sometimes I like to do the opposite of what I'm told. And I will tell you that that night he bought drinks and has texted me daily since.
Did he give you a spanking?
He did not. Jesse, if you're listening... If you're listening, my friend, just go for it the next time we're at a conference. But if he's into it, I'm sure he's afraid because we're professional colleagues. So if he's into it, he's not letting on other than texting me daily and paying for drinks since that happened.
I can see in certain fields, like if you're a teacher, if you do anything to do with kids, or even like psychiatrists, psychologists, if you are involved in this and it gets out there, it could definitely backfire on you, even though it is a harmless thing that you are only doing with yourself and someone else that's, consenting to do it.
I think anybody either who works with kids or, works like in some public service kind of thing, or anybody who's well known, someone who's in like the entertainment industry, it's very hard for them to go out on a limb and do this because they risk their entire professional standing.
That's why I feel that Jessica Biel has not contacted me yet. She knows that I've been calling for her. But I have a couple of clever little ways that you could subtly let someone know that you're into spanking, that not so much always someone you're dating or someone that you want to date, but just anybody out there when you're in public.
Okay.
Way back when I was a firefighter, I remember seeing this EMS girl wearing a shirt. It was all about the paddles, you know, that they shock your heart back into rhythm. And the shirt said, "A good paddling puts you back in line."
Oh.
And I'm looking and I'm thinking, this girl has no idea what she just did for me. But a shirt like that, if you're a girl or even a guy wearing that, and you are out there in public and a Spanko girl or guy sees it, they are probably going to make a little comment, even if it's something subtle, back to see if you actually are a Spanko.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that T-shirt.
They are still out there because I looked them up on, I believe it was eBay, and I think Amazon had some, but they're all different variations about the paddling because of the paddles with the shock thing.
Uh-huh.
Also, I was thinking things that are a little less subtle, but if you just put those little stickers on your car that say OTK, or even had a vanity license plate and your license plate says OTK or just straight out paddler or something like that, that's going to be something where if you're a Spanko and you're sitting behind this car and you see OTK, you are going to want to get up on the side of this person and see who they are.
That's right, and give him a little thumbs up.
Maybe his name was Oscar Thomas Killington. You know? And now you gave him the thumbs up, and his wife is sitting there on the right-hand side saying, "Who was that?"
Who was that, Oscar?
Yeah, who was that, Oscar Thomas?
See, but this is so good because if I'm with a man who I'm attracted to, I'm always looking for little ways of dropping a hint. But mine are always verbal. You know, like if the man asks me to do something, I'll just kind of innocently say, and, you know, in kind of a flirty way, say something like, "Was that an order?" And if the guy is into it, he's going to bite. He will. If he's not into it, then he'll just be like, "No, I'm just asking you to do X, Y, or Z." And then you know to let it go. But I like your little nonverbal ways of doing it.
I've noticed that when I was dating non-Spankos, that they took their verbal cues even though they weren't Spankos.
Oh.
I find that because of the era that we've grown up in, it was known that if you misbehave or you do something wrong or say something wrong, that a spanking was on the table. So when you are talking to them kind of in a flirty way and kind of also in like you're in charge, but in a flirty way, in a funny way, they will respond in that kind of way, even though they aren't Spankos. And that's how I would usually get a lot of the girls that I dated that were non-Spankos into getting a spanking.
This is so interesting because I have tried this a million times and have not been successful. So I'm actually thinking about a guy I dated in Canada, and I went to visit him, and he was, to the best of my knowledge, not a Spanko. And when he took me to the airport, he said, "Please text or call me when you get to your layover so that I know that you got there safely. And then let me know when you finally land in your city and get home." So I thought, okay, this is a good opportunity. So I just said, "So what happens if I don't?" And he said, "What do you mean what happens if you don't?" I was like, never mind.
So he just blew it.
He totally blew it.
I did the same things. I would be like, "When you get home, call me and let me know." And then if they didn't call me and let me know, I would call them eventually. And I'd be like, "You didn't call me. Now here's my in." And I'd throw them a little subtle thing, not even subtle. It's pretty much just telling them that I should give you a spanking. And I don't remember ever where within the first couple weeks of dating someone that they didn't latch on to one of these things that I threw out there. There was definitely a few times where the girl, I could tell by her response, I am never going to spank this girl, and this relationship is probably coming to an end.
Did you have girls get angry at you for trying to, in their eyes, dominate them?
I never had anyone get angry with me, but I did have someone say once, if anybody ever did that to me, I would do whatever. And then I would laugh it off and just continue on with the day as if I never said anything, and then probably go out with them one more time and then say something like, this isn't working out. And then slowly just fade away out of their life.
Right.
I do have one more thing that is way not subtle. You know those stickers that people put on cars where it says, I'd rather be fishing?
Yeah.
How about just a sticker that says, I'd rather be spanking?
I think it would sell like hotcakes.
You know what? Actually, down here, there are a lot of people that go out on stand-up paddle boards or they go out kayaking. How about just something like, I'd rather be paddling?
Oh, I like that.
I think I'm going to do this before this podcast episode comes out, and I'm going to have them already on Zazzle.com or something. So people
I think you'd make a killing. I really do.
I may have to make it a magnet and a car sticker.
Perfect. I had a boyfriend who had a kayak, and he loved kayaking. And he would always say to me, want to go out for a paddle? And I would always respond, well, how much is it going to hurt? And he would laugh, but he wouldn't bite.
How about just saying something like, well, why do we have to go out? Can't we just do that right here?
Exactly. Although I did kind of let on that I was into this, and he was not kind about it. Let's put it that way.
It's too bad that people don't have the same sophisticated mindset as us spankos.
That's what I'm saying, especially you and me. We're the most sophisticated of all the spankos, clearly.
People right now are saying, damn that Dr. Eve, damn her. All right.
Exactly.
Do you want to move on to the next subject?
Let's move on.
Okay. What are some things that you could do as a spanko to satisfy your needs when you're in a dry spell?
Watch videos posted by a good spankin'.
That is a fantastic advertisement, and I condone this.
So I'll tell you what I do. I can't just go out there and get a spanking from some random man. I really need to feel a connection with the person. So there have been dry spells. And I have a male friend who, to the best of my knowledge, is not into spanking, but he is very dominant and in charge in a very good way. I mean, he's a great guy, and he's probably my closest male friend. It also doesn't hurt that he's about 6'9". And all I have to do is spend time with him, and the itch is scratched for a little while, even though there's no actual spanking taking place.
Because he will dominate you even though he doesn't know he's doing it?
Exactly. So in his personality, he's a very large and in charge type of person. Even in his banter with people, including me, there's a dominance that he brings to the table. He's very decisive. He makes a decision about what's going to happen, and then it just happens. And so for a woman who is attracted to that and enjoys that, that can scratch the itch for a little while.
Okay. I have a couple of, these are just some things that you could do to kind of, I guess, get some aspects of a spanking without actually getting a spanking.
All right.
Have you ever given blood?
Yeah.
And you know, after you've given blood, somebody will come along and they will take you by the upper arm and they will lead you to a chair to give you some juice and some kind of a snack.
Oh.
So you being a spanko and you liking to be taken by the upper arm and led to your spanking, don't you think that you would get a little bit of a thrill if one of these older men comes up to you, grabs you by the arm, and starts walking you towards your apple juice?
Absolutely. If it was a woman, I would not. But if it's like a male nurse or a technician or, phlebotomist or something, then definitely I would. Definitely.
I always found it funny where I would give blood, and it always seemed like it was a short old woman. And she would come up to me and kind of jack my arm up and walk me over to the table. And I'm thinking, what does she think she's doing? you know? But even though she's shorter than me, somehow she'd have to jack my arm up and I'm lopsided. Maybe it's the standard practice with the Red Cross. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I do, but I have to tell you, I'm feeling a little bit shy about saying it.
Do you want me to say another one and
Yeah.
hopefully that you won't feel as shy?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I have another one which kind of really won't work unless you have a plane ticket because you can't get into this area. But I talked about this on Twitter one day. If you're in that area right before they go through the X-ray machines, everyone has to take their belt off. Not only that, but the people that are standing there are constantly barking out orders, telling them what to do and to tell them to take their belts off. So if you are really into the belt aspect of it, you could sit there all day long and just watch this happen time and time again.
I'm not even into belts, but it is so sexy to watch a man take his belt off.
But these people who are working that area are constantly barking orders at everyone, telling them what to do. There's another aspect that someone like you who likes this dominant personality, you could sit there all day long. And if you really wanted to, you could keep getting into place and then think, oh, hold on, I got to do something. Take all your stuff off the thing and just keep doing it over and over and over. And these people will keep telling you what to do.
That's right. And you just get that itch scratched over and over and over again that day.
Just move to another line and get it by a different person. Get in the line of that hot guy that you could picture giving you a spanking and maybe even keep asking him and annoy him a little bit.
Exactly.
Have you gained a little confidence yet?
All right. I'm just going to do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so you know on YouTube how if you watch something, it'll start suggesting videos that are kind of like it or like in the same genre of video?
Oh, believe me, whenever I log on, I only get one suggestion.
So I actually don't really look up spanking stuff on YouTube for whatever reason. I think I get a little bit nervous because I'm logged on under my own name and I start to get a little bit paranoid about somebody figuring this out about me. But I don't know. I must have had a moment of weakness and I probably looked up spanking or something along those lines on YouTube and must have watched a video. And then for days afterward, I was getting all of these suggestions for other videos. So this one comes up and it took me into a world of videos that I have never seen before. Do you know what this ASMR thing is?
Yes. Yes, I do.
So I'm not an ASMR person, but it's kind of like marketed as an ASMR video. But it's basically this dominant man. There is no woman on the video with him, and it's just his voice. And he is speaking to the listener as though she is the submissive partner and he's the dominant partner. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised because it was like a spanking scenario. And what was enjoyable about it was that you can almost sit there and kind of imagine that this person is talking to you, even though you don't know this guy from a hole in the wall.
I have a feeling that if I'm listening to this, I'm going to have a total different opinion than you are right now. But go ahead.
I'm sure you would. So I then listened to another one by the same guy, and that one was going more in like a daddy, little girl direction, which is not my flavor. But then other ones were being suggested. The problem is, if you're like me and you're very particular about what you like and you don't like, you're going to get turned off pretty quickly because the voice on the video is not giving you exactly the specific flavor and combination of things that you enjoy. But I thought if somebody is going through a dry spell and kind of just needs that itch scratched a little bit, this is a pretty good short-term solution.
I could see that, and maybe even go as far as practicing self-spanking.
Right. So that's not my thing,
right.
But I am certain, and I mean, I know that there are people who are very into that, and more power to them.
But they get to scolding kind of, well, obviously the ASMR is whispering.
So that's what's interesting is this is actually not whispering. This is a man speaking in his normal voice. So I'm not really sure why he's selling it as ASMR. But if anybody wants to look it up on YouTube, you can just look up dominant ASMR and it takes you into this whole world. And I'm sure that your listeners can find some channel out there that kind of scratches their specific itch.
All right. I have another ridiculous one. Yours are more realistic. Mine are a little ridiculous. But volleyball games. These people who slam this volleyball with the palms of their hands.
Oh.
I don't watch girls' college volleyball nearly as much as I would like to, but I see these girls go up, and the way they smack that volleyball, these girls would make some awesome spankers. But if you're a female and you want to go see guys who have some firm palms, go watch a guy's volleyball game. But if you're a guy and you just want to see some nice looking butts, go watch a college girls volleyball game because you will see them all day. And there is a lot of butt slapping going on in those games, which is my favorite part of the game. And
when you first started talking about girls volleyball just now, and you were talking about them slapping the volleyball, I thought to myself, this isn't the part of volleyball that he really likes. Why is he not talking about the part he likes? Because I know that you like their butts in a uniform.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was trying to help out people who are in a little bit of a dry spell.
This is the smell of the leftover tuna fish sandwich you left in your lunchbox over the weekend in a wimpy trash bag.
Wimpy, wimpy, wimpy.
Blech. And this is the smell of that same sandwich in a hefty, ultra-strong trash bag.
Hefty, hefty, hefty.
Ah, smell the difference? Hefty Ultra Strong has Arm & Hammer with continuous odor control, so no matter what's inside your trash, you can stay one step ahead of stinky. And for bigger jobs, try the superior strength of Hefty Large Black Bags.
I have a couple more. Do you have any more?
I'm good with the YouTube ASMR guy. I'm finished.
I have another one, but this is really season specific. Kind of like volleyball, because, you know, volleyball is a certain season, unless you go to watch beach volleyball, which happens pretty much every night down on Daytona Beach near where I am. But this comes at Halloween. And at Halloween, if you go to a Halloween party and you're a normal person and you're not a creep, not a weirdo, and not forcing anything on anyone, you go as a teacher, a principal, a schoolgirl, or even a priest like I did one year. And I had a paddle, and on the paddle I wrote Sin Eraser. And every girl at this Halloween party wanted to have their sins erased.
Really?
It is amazing if you bring a prop to a Halloween party and the drinks are flowing, eventually that prop, depending on what it is. I mean, if you bring a dildo, well, more power to you if you get to use that over and over. But if you bring a paddle and you go about it the right way, there are going to be girls and probably a lot of guys that are going to want you to hit them with this paddle.
And did you hit many girls with the paddle that year?
I hit many girls with the paddle that year.
The question is, how many people went home after that Halloween party and took care of business on their own after having seen that?
I have no idea. You know, some people probably just thought it was funny because spanking to a lot of people is just funny. And to other people, obviously, it's very disturbing.
That's right. That's right.
I do have one more thing, and this is location specific.
You got creative with this one.
Well, you know, I was sitting down. I don't work. And I have a little time on my hands, and I started writing a couple things down, and I did it over a period of time since we discussed doing this episode. And this one here, if you live in Las Vegas, Nevada, specifically near 450 Fremont Street, you could go and watch public paddlings pretty much all day long at the Heart Attack Grill.
What?
Yes.
What?
The Heart Attack Grill has this challenge. Now, the Heart Attack Grill is all about the worst food. They try to make their food as unhealthy as possible. That's the whole concept of the Heart Attack Grill. And there is this challenge that they have. And if you can't complete the challenge, you get a paddling. If you do complete the challenge, your hostess, dressed as a nurse, will wheel you out to your sidewalk, not to your sidewalk, to the sidewalk in a wheelchair. So that's your reward for finishing the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the challenge. It is called the Quadruple Bypass Burger, which has 9,982 calories.
Oh, my God.
It's 4 half-pound beef patties, 20 strips of bacon, 8 slices of American cheese, 1 tomato, half an onion, and it's served on a bun coated with lard.
Oh, gross.
And if you don't finish this, they bring you to this one area. Sometimes I've seen them do it right at your table. And other times they bring you to this one area where you hold on to these bars and you stick your butt out and they paddle you like 3 times.
And people can just go and watch the proceedings.
Maybe you have a couple beers and you have an appetizer and you just sit there next to where they're doing the paddlings, and you're probably going to see quite a few paddlings because people go in there specifically to try the Quadruple Bypass Burger.
Uh-huh.
If you go onto YouTube and you do a search for this, you will see hundreds of videos of people getting paddled.
This is hilarious. Have you ever gone?
I was in Vegas twice and I never even knew this existed. Had I known it existed, the last time I went with a girl, and she was a non-spanko, but I did spank her, and she would have been more than happy to go there and eat and watch this with me.
And is there a designated spanker?
I believe it's your nurse that is waiting on you at the table.
Oh. Well, there's your solution. Just go and ask out the nurses, because probably they're open to engaging in some spanking play.
Yeah, but what if it's the spanking play that I'm not really looking for?
That's a good point. That's a very good
Do I have
point.
to take the good with the bad?
Do they have any male nurse, waiter, whatevers?
I didn't really look into it, and I didn't really care to. But I'm sure they probably do.
I'll be looking on YouTube a little later.
I don't think I've ever seen a male giving the paddling, but at this place, you could buy your paddle and take it home as like a little souvenir. So there's probably a lot of non-spankos out there with a whole bunch of Heart Attack Grill paddles sitting in their house.
Probably. And then people like you show up at their homes, see the paddle off the hook, and make all kinds of assumptions.
Bingo. And if I'm dating one of these girls and I come in and I see this paddle, I know by the end of that night, something is either going to happen or another date and we're probably done.
Or you're going to end up in jail.
That's true. I never have force spanked anyone.
Well, you haven't lived until, no, I'm kidding.
Well, I haven't force spanked anyone that didn't already know that spanking was on the table.
Exactly. Because for some of us, the force part of it is where it's all at. But of course, it's all consensual.
It is consensual, and it would be awesome to live in a world where adult spanking was real. But then on the other hand, you don't want it from everyone.
Exactly. And in fact, you don't want it from 99.9% of people.
Exactly. So scratch everything I just said. It's not going to work.
You know, it's so funny. In a relationship, I can be on the submissive side for the most part. But in my everyday life, I'm really not. And the things that I accept from a man who I want to spank me, if any other man tried that, he would get the verbal beatdown of the century. But it's like, I am just a completely different human being with the man I actually want to engage in this with.
You're definitely not totally submissive. Even when we're talking, I could tell that you could be a hard ass on people if you wanted to be.
I can be. It's true.
Do you have anything else to speak about with the dry spell Spanko tips?
I'm good on a dry spell, but you've given me some good ideas.
I really only had one more, and it's very simple. Is just go to those large adult novelty stores where they have everything. They have sections of blow-up dolls. They have sections of videos. They have sections of BDSM gear. So if you just went and hung out at the paddles all day long, chances are someone else is going to be in that area at some point. And perhaps you can say to them, hey, can you try this out on me? I just want to see how it feels.
Can you just show me how to use this?
If they were in this place and a guy comes along and they say, can you just try this out on me? I'd like to know how it feels. I think that guys would be like, oh my God, what have I done to deserve this?
Exactly.
And when they walk out of that place that day, they're going to be looking both ways in traffic because they don't want this to be their last day because they think their luck has just changed. All right, let's move on down to the next subject that I have here. And these are uncomfortable scenarios that could hypothetically arise as a spanko.
I've got one big one that actually did happen.
Well, give me a big one, Dr. Eve.
It actually has to do with your podcast.
I know what this is. Go ahead.
I know that you know what it is. Shortly after I did the episode that we did together, I flew home to see my family. And I really wanted to listen to the episode, and my mom had just gotten a new car. And my mother doesn't really understand technology, so she said to me, can you figure out how to sync my iPhone with the car so that, you know, 'cause she wants to be able to use the speakerphone. So I had to use her car to go somewhere, and I'm not so good technologically either, but I was just kind of playing around with it to figure out how I sync these two things. And I got it to work, and so I thought, okay, well, I have to drive about an hour. I'll listen to the podcast. So I listened to the podcast, enjoyed listening to it, got the car back home, didn't think twice about it. That was on like a Friday afternoon. Sunday morning, I was going to go out to breakfast with my parents. And we get in the car. My dad is driving. My mom is in the passenger seat, and I got in the back. My father turns the car on, and I had not turned off the radio, so it was just on full volume. And all of a sudden, I hear myself talking. It synced with my phone, and it started playing the podcast. And I flew out of that back seat and turned off the radio in the front seat. Because, of course, my parents know my voice, and they're going to hear their daughter talking to this strange man in Florida about spanking. And my entire body broke out into a cold sweat. And thankfully, I was able to turn it off. But talk about awkward.
If you actually just pulled your phone out and hit pause, it would have also stopped.
I know, but it takes a second to think about that. And I was in fight or flight. I was like flying out of that seat and just smashing my hand against the radio button.
I would have done the same thing, and I could vouch for that because I have been listening to podcasts or whatever, even music on my phone, and when you restart that car up, if you have not changed it back to radio or whatever mode you want it to be in, it will start playing whatever was on your phone again.
That's right. You have to be careful if you're a spanko.
I can't think of anything that's happened quite like that, but I can see that happening, and I could just see that, you know, you have to think spur of the moment. You're not thinking pull this phone out. You're thinking, how can I crash this car and make that stop right now?
Exactly, because I would rather crash my mother's new car than be outed as a spanko to my parents.
They'll be like, all of a sudden, my daughter came flying up, grabbed the steering wheel, and we went off the road. So,
oh, God.
I had a friend that lived down here for a while, and she moved away. But she was not a spanko, but again, I spanked her quite a few times. But what she would do to me is anytime we would go out to eat or something, not anytime, but she did it quite a bit in public, she would sit there and she would say my name, or she would say something like, do I have to bring you home and spank you? Out loud for everyone to hear, or right in front of the waitress. And now I'm sitting there with this grin on my face like, I want to kill you right now. because you know what these people are thinking, and I won't look around because I don't know what people are doing at that moment. But they're probably sitting there thinking this short girl is going to bring that tall guy home and give him a spanking.
Hey, stranger things have happened. Lots of CEOs and politicians want to be spanked by a woman.
A lot of politicians probably need to be spanked by anyone.
I think you're right.
And that's Democrats and Republicans, people out there. So don't think it's one or the other. It's both.
Agreed. Agreed with you 100%.
So just the other day, I was posting a picture on Twitter. I don't have a personal Twitter, but I do have a personal Facebook. So my Twitter is only my A Good Spankin' name on the Twitter. And I don't mean on the Twitter, but because that's what my mother would call it, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Walmarts, the Targets. Anyway, so I went to go post this picture and I put a little caption on Twitter and sent it. And then quickly got out of Twitter. But then I thought to myself, wait a second. And my heart, like everything, all of a sudden you feel flush and you're thinking, did I post that to Facebook?
Oh, no.
And I logged on quick and I went to Twitter and I looked and it wasn't there right when I logged on. And I said, oh, crap. And then I clicked on my profile and I'm like, oh, it's there. Because, I did it so fast. I said, let me just do this real quick. If I posted that to Facebook, someone is going to see it before I get on there and delete it.
Absolutely. And it's probably going to be a female family member.
Even if it was my friends, they're going to see this and they're going to be like, what the hell? Or my mother. Worse yet, my mother.
Oh, God.
Well, Jay, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
I was just going to out you on something that happened.
You're going to out me? About. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. You and I were texting, I think it was a couple of Sunday mornings ago.
Okay.
And I don't remember what it was that you wrote, but you were saying something about having spanked a girl or something, and you accidentally sent it to a group text with a bunch of male friends of yours.
I was actually just going to talk about that, but I was texting 3 different people. I was texting you. I was texting this other girl that I've been hanging out with that's been visiting her family down here. And I was texting this group of 4 guys. And I thought I was responding to you. And thank God, the way that I wrote the text, I was like, okay, I could explain this away. So I wrote down below, I said, oops, I said, that was not meant for you. And I just put a little LOL. And they just went on as if nothing happened.
Nobody said a word.
No, because of the way it was written, I had said something about how all these old men that, see these girls coming to my place probably would love to spank the girls that are coming here. And they didn't read into it at all. It's like they just thought it was just something that I texted to some other person and they never even commented on it. I went probably white as a ghost and then I went into damage mode. And it was very easy to get out of it. And I have not had a lot of times where this has happened where I've been outed. But there are some scenarios that could come up that this could happen.
Like what?
Well, let me just tell you one. And I think I talked about this on the podcast once. I was dating this girl that I had met when I was about 24 years old. And from the first night, spanking came up. And from that point on, I pretty much spanked this girl every time I saw her. She was not a spanko beforehand, but she really enjoyed getting a spanking. She actually kind of considered it a challenge to go harder and use different things, paddles, switches, belts. So she really liked it. And of course, she really liked the massage afterward. But after a couple weeks, she knows I'm into spanking. She obviously knows this. So something came up one day where I found out that her father, who had something wrong with him physically, so he couldn't do certain jobs, but he wanted to keep busy, so he took a job at an adult bookstore. The same adult bookstore that I would go to because it was not in my hometown and it was nowhere where I thought I would run into people that I knew.
Oh, no.
So then I find out from her that her father works at this adult bookstore, and she described him to me. And I could picture this guy clear as day even today. And I'm like, oh my God, he has seen me. And now here I am going to meet her father.
Oh, no.
So I said, is he going to remember me? And she didn't even say, oh, probably not, or, oh, you never know. She said, yes, he will. And all I'm thinking is, he knows what I went to the counter with. It was either a spanking magazine or a spanking video.
And now you're dating his daughter.
Maybe he's thinking that, well, my daughter's getting what she's needed for a long time. But he was so nice to me. The whole family was very nice to me. He never said a word. I never went back into that store again. But that was the shock whenever she told me that her father worked at that adult bookstore.
And he never gave you the side eye even?
No, he was really nice to me. And maybe he really did think that my daughter probably could use a few of those. And I got to tell you, sir, I gave her more than a few. And they didn't spank her growing up. I think she got spanked by her mother one time. Well, I made up for lost time in 4 years that I dated her.
Oh my gosh. I once read this article. I know I read it online, but I forget where. And it was a story of this man who's a journalist, and his father was a writer. And when the father passed away, the father left the son. Basically, the instructions were for the son to go into his office and clean everything out, and that only the son was to do this. So the son goes into the father's office and discovers that his father was basically a professional porn writer. And so the son wrote this whole article about it, and it was so entertaining to read because he's discovering his father's illicit mind after the father's death. And in the article, he says, I never even got to process it and talk to my dad about all of these books he wrote. And he was one of the top porn writers out there.
Well, think about everyone just in our community, the Spanko community. But there's so many other fetishes out there, and we all have stuff. I have one of my brothers. His thing for me and mine for him is that we go in, we clean up the house. We are each other's executors. We are the only ones that are allowed to give anything to anyone. And my brother knows, don't go erase my computers or anything like that. Just destroy them, because I don't want everyone knowing what I was doing. And he said the same thing to me, but my brother doesn't have a fetish, so I don't know what I'm destroying from him. What, regular, normal porn?
I'm going to ask the question that all of your listeners want me to ask.
Have they emailed you and told you this?
No, but I can already tell you that this is what they're wondering.
Okay.
Guys, I've got you covered. Don't worry. Everybody wants to know, after you die, will the videos remain on Spanking Tube?
I look at it this way. I look at singers like Ozzy Osbourne. Not that I'm as popular as these people, but I just look at them and say, their music is going to last forever. And it's kind of great that even after I'm dead, hundreds of years from now, hopefully, this world is still in existence, but people are going to be looking and my videos are going to be classic. It's going to be like, oh, look at these old classic videos.
Exactly. Somebody's going to write a whole book on School Days 3.
Maybe one of your descendants.
But your brother doesn't have instructions to take the videos down. That's what I'm asking.
No, he doesn't even know how to find them. I mean, of course, if he logged on to my iPad or computer, he could easily find the sites that I was on. But I'm going to tell him, do not remove my presence from online. Because even in my death, I still want to give. I'm like a charity that doesn't take any money.
That's right.
So, do you have any more you'd like to mention about?
Floor's yours.
Okay. Now, these are a few, and I definitely like your point of view.
Yeah.
So I always thought about that maybe one day, now that I'm older, and a lot of my friends have children that are in their late teens, early 20s, and some even their 30s. My own nephews are in their 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of emails with people saying, if I'm in Florida, can we get together? And, if our schedules match up when they're here, then perhaps we can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always thinking that one of these days, perhaps I'm going to get the daughter of one of my friends or even a son of one of my friends asking me if I spank guys.
Oh, God.
But can you imagine that? I mean, the likelihood is probably a very small %, but this stuff could happen.
Okay, so here's the thing. I know you to be a very friendly person who has lots of people in his life. You've got a lot of friends who you've been friends with since childhood, and you got a lot of people. Somewhere in that group of people you know, there is another Spanko. There has to be. There are too many people in your life for it to not be the case. I mean, I also have a lot of people in my life. Somewhere in there, there's another one. There has to be. And the thing about your videos, as we talked about in the podcast episode that I did, is that you have a very identifiable tattoo.
Right.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in your life knows and is like, oh my gosh, that's him in the video, but is just too shy to come forward and tell you.
A lot of my friends that I have that I've had for years, and I do have a lot of people that I am an acquaintance with, but I would think that most of those people would have contacted me, because what is going to happen if they contact me? Am I going to out them for being a Spanko?
I know, but you're saying this as someone who has made peace with the fact that this is part of you. A lot of people have not made peace with it. They feel very ashamed, and it would be very difficult for them to come forward. I mean, I've mostly made peace with it with myself, and even I would have a very hard time going to a friend or to a family member and saying, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I've seen the videos.
All right, I have a good one here. It's still far-fetched like that one, although none of them are really far-fetched because, like you said, someone in our group of close or not so close acquaintances is probably a Spanko.
Yes.
So think about this one. And I don't have any children, but just say I have a daughter or even a son, whatever. I have a son and a daughter. My daughter or my son is dating someone who is like us. They are Spankos.
Mm-hmm.
And this Spanko brings them into their world and said, hey, would you come to a party with me? There's this guy I'd really like to meet.
Oh, man, I know where this is going.
He goes by the name A Good Spankin'. Now, here's my daughter and son thinking, well, this is a little weird, but you know what? I love this person, and I really want to be with them. I get along with them. I want to see what this is all about. And then they get into the party, and they're like, hey, does anyone know where that guy A Good Spankin' is?
Oh, God.
And they'll be like, yes, he's right over there. And here I am, I'm sitting there, my back is to them. Maybe I'm even spanking a girl. Who knows what's going on at this time? And all of a sudden, here they come, and there's my daughter or son standing there with this Spanko, and our eyes meet. So,
oh, God.
Has this ever happened, do you think?
I doubt it's happened because the spanking parties aren't happening every other day. And I've never been to one, but my understanding is it's not 30,000 people attending. I mean, it certainly could happen. I think the worst part of this whole scenario is that your child would then also know something about their mother. And then they would know something about how they were conceived.
That's probably true. But here's my son or my daughter. Let's just say my son. And this girl who he's dating says, you know, I'd like you to spank me because if we want to move this relationship forward, this is what I need in my life. And she goes, I want you to watch a couple of these videos.
Oh, God.
And this is how I want you to try to emulate. So they turn on the videos, and there's my son staring right at his father's arm.
Thanksgiving is going to be awkward, like you can't even imagine. But what would you do if your son came to you and said, Dad, I got to tell you something?
Well, what are we going to do, lie to him?
No, you can't.
That's not mine. All right. We should move on from this. That was a fun little topic. All right. This is the thinking man's question. You know what? thinking person's question.
Thank you very much.
I don't want to be canceled here. So this is a thinking person's question, and I think it's a pretty legit question. And here it is. Will spankos take the path of the dinosaurs in the future? And here's what I mean by that. In our lives now, very few cartoons or movies, television shows have spankings in them anymore. If a movie like, let's say, Step Brothers, and that's getting to be an older movie now, although it's still very popular, the spanking that's depicted in that is kind of a goofy spanking. It's just funny. So with things like that where cartoons and movies, TV shows aren't showing real spankings anymore, and you never really hear of friends getting them as you're growing up anymore, because with spanking, for a lot of these young people, their entire lives, they've been told spanking is bad. There's studies out there that tell you spanking is bad. So these kids are growing up thinking spanking is bad. I don't know how it all came about with us, because none of us could ever go back and find out when this thing first entered our head. We kind of know when about we started thinking about it, but we don't know why. Don't you think that there are going to be less and less people out there that are going to think spanking good?
You're right. This is the thinking question of the evening.
And this is a perfect question for you, Dr. Eve.
Oh, I thank you so much. We're talking about spanking, conservation, and preservation.
Yes, it should be a movement.
Exactly. Like preserving and conserving of spanking is a wonderful and fulfilling pastime that you and I know it to be. I think there are three things that are working against spanking, conservation, and preservation. I think you named one of them, that it's no longer in cartoons. It's no longer in sitcoms. Like, remember, Arnold got spanked on different strokes.
Here is the best part about that episode. Is Kimberly talked about the one time that her father spanked her.
That's right. Kimberly in her tight 80s jeans.
Yeah, and you know what? I went and watched that episode because it was on YouTube. And what I had in my mind is so much different from what I see now.
What was in your mind was better?
Well, because when I go back and watch it now, Kimberly's like 13 years old. And back then, when I was probably right around the same age and watching Kimberly, I'm thinking, wow, Kimberly's really hot. And now I go back and watch her and I say, wow, Kimberly's really young.
Right.
You know? But Kimberly had talked about a time when she buried her father on the beach. And whenever they got home, her butt was as red as his head was.
Oh, that's funny. I don't remember that part. All I remember is Arnold, but I don't remember the Kimberly part.
To this day, I remember hearing that and thinking, oh. Anyway, so go ahead. Tell me what you think.
Okay, so three things working against the conservation and preservation of spanking. It's no longer in cartoons and sitcoms, so it doesn't like make its way into popular culture that kids consume. I think you also mentioned kids are not getting spanked these days for the most part. I mean, there are some subcultures in the U.S. that do, but for the most part, it's not this like super common thing for kids to get spanked. And then I think the third thing that's working against it is that assuming that the woman is the spanky and the man is the spanker, it's very taboo to depict women as submissive. It's not something that society feels comfortable doing anymore. You know, if you just watch TV, compare I Love Lucy to Everybody Loves Raymond.
Oh, I can't stand her.
I can't stand it. I can't stand it. She plays this kind of henpecking wife who's always putting down her husband, and that was funny. Whereas rewind 30 years and Lucy was funny because Ricky was spanking Lucy. And that dynamic was very different, but we're not comfortable with the I Love Lucy dynamic being depicted in popular culture anymore.
Who's not comfortable?
So I think society, American society.
I'm society.
Well, I'm society too, and I'm very comfortable with it. But we're not TV producers, and if we were, we'd probably get fired.
Can you imagine if you did a sitcom? Let's just say Doug Heffernan spanked Carrie. I got to tell you, she deserved it. But anyway, go ahead.
She did deserve it. Okay. So those are the things I think that are working against it. But at the end of the day, I just don't think that this is nurture. I think it's nature. I think that there are some people, like a vanilla girlfriend of yours, who then gets turned on to spanking. I think it's definitely possible. But I think that people who are like really, really diehard into it, I think it's hardwired. And the only reason that we can only remember liking it at age 5 is only because memory consolidation starts at age 5. We don't have memories before age 5 so much. So I just think that this is part of us. And I think that in perpetuity, forevermore, people are going to be into spanking. And I just think it's going to be harder for them, potentially harder for them to find a partner, because they're going to be afraid of saying to a new dating partner, listen, this is what I want to do to you, because they're going to be afraid of the social repercussion.
But like you said, nowadays, there's so much going on. The news constantly telling us that this male-dominated society has to end. And women are all empowered. And I agree with that. You know, you guys do what you do. But if you say the wrong thing to someone, holy crap. I mean, nowadays, you could be ruined.
Imagine if when you were 13 and I was 3.
Okay, hold on one second. Okay, got it.
Imagine if when you were 18, imagine if Twitter existed and social media existed. Thank God social media didn't exist when we were young, because we could explore these things without fear of everybody in the world knowing it. But these days, some 17-year-old kid or 20-year-old kid who is like, hey, I really like this, I want to try to spank my girlfriend in college, is probably terrified to do it because he doesn't know what she's going to say about him on social media and possibly ruin him and ruin his future.
Obviously, a lot of stuff going on is good stuff, but some people take it to an extreme.
Yeah.
So this girl goes and tells her friends, and she has a couple people in this group that are very militant about this stuff. They are going to ruin this guy.
Exactly. So I don't think that spanking will go away. I don't think the interest in it will ever go extinct, but it's going to be really challenging for people to explore this when they're young, given the realities of social media, which is a little bit sad because it's a lot of fun to explore it and just put yourself into it and enjoy it without fearing repercussions. But at the same time, they have the internet where they can meet other spankos and know from the get-go that the other person is into this, whereas you and I did not have that when we were coming of age.
True, and that opens up a whole nother ball of wax, because now you got to find out who are the crazy ones and who are the sane ones that I could actually meet.
Exactly, yes.
So one thing that I have definitely run into a few times is girls have contacted me, and it actually happened to me just recently, where a girl contacted me and she was coming down here to visit her family and she wanted to meet me. And she told me that she was going to tell a couple of her friends about it.
Were you the first person to ever spank her?
She was coming here for her first spanking. And I said, if you're going to tell your friends because you want to let them know that you're going to be at some man's house, do that and let them know that I'm going to be going over this guy's house. This is where he lives. If something happens to me, this is where I was. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But don't spring on these girls or these guy friends that you're going there to get a spanking from a complete stranger, because that's going to be a little different for some people, and they're going to talk you out of it. I recommend that you get that first spanking and then you tell your friend.
Right.
Because now you've been here, you know who I am, I didn't do anything more than what you asked, and now your friend is going to react a little differently when you tell them.
Really what she needs, and this is what I used to do.
A good spanking?
In addition to that, when I was first exploring this, I had a female friend who was also into it. And so anytime she was going to go meet somebody or I was going to go meet somebody, we would email the other one, the person's name and phone number, and just say, I will check in with you at whatever time. And then if the other person didn't check in, then we knew to follow up. So that's probably a good idea, but I would not recommend telling vanilla friends because they're going to flip out.
She did tell at least 2 vanilla friends after the fact.
And how did they react?
They actually were definitely better about it after it happened. Mm-hmm. But I think one of them would have talked her out of coming. The other one seems more adventurous. I think he would have been like, oh yeah, go try it out, but be careful. And the other guy would have been like, no way, don't let anyone do that to you.
I know you to be a safe person and a good guy, but if the person doesn't know that, it just sounds crazy and dangerous, of course.
It sounds crazy to the person because
yes.
Not only are they learning that their friend is a spanko, they're learning that she's going to some stranger's house to get this spanking.
That's right.
And that happened to me a few years back when I lived in Connecticut. A girl told her sister that she was coming specifically to get a spanking. And her sister told her that any guy who hits you in any way is abusive. And she never ended up coming.
Really?
Yeah. She is one of the only ones who totally blew me off, had a specific time she was going to be there, and just never showed up.
I wonder if she ended up regretting that move later.
I have no idea. She's never contacted me again, as far as I know. I have pictures of this girl. I knew everything about her. I knew where she was going to college. And she told me she was going to do it. I said, I think it's a great idea that you tell someone where you're going to be, but I don't think it's a good idea that you tell them what you're going to do until after you've done it.
Exactly. Personally, just my own personality, I cannot even imagine telling my vanilla friends or family that I had engaged in this. It's so private for me that I feel no desire to share it with anyone, but everybody's different.
My brother knows everything I do. I don't tell him the girls' names, and he's a computer guy. So if something happened to me, and just like if I have ever done anything to someone, they would track these people down or they would track me down within a day. Because with the way technology works now, if I ever did something where a girl goes missing, and I talked about this on the last podcast, that they're going to be at my house looking that day, even if I have nothing to do with it, they're going to find all this crap and I am going to be put through the ringer. I'm going to be called a pervert. They're going to have all this stuff about me on the news and people are going to be like, I never saw it coming. And then other people are going to be like, you know what? I noticed he was a weirdo.
You know, those, you can go on YouTube and you can see police interrogations of suspects.
Yes.
And it goes for like hours. And I've watched so many of them just because they're fascinating. And I just have this image of you in the interrogation room on YouTube.
So you're telling me that these girls come to you and they ask you to hit them. Yes, that's what I'm telling you. And then it's like 9 hours later. All right, let's go back to this. You're telling me, officer, I don't know how many ways I could put this, but if you let me get to a laptop, I'm going to show you exactly what happens when girls come to my house.
That's right. And, you know, they'll ask the same thing many times to see if the story changes.
Yes.
So this particular police officer is going to be like, okay, now tell me the School Days 3 story again. You'll be like, can we just call Dr. Eve and she'll explain it better?
Who's this Dr. Eve? And what is her relationship in this whole thing?
There goes my career. I'm in the interrogation room now.
She's a pervert just like me, sir. I'm taking everyone down with me.
Poor Liz doesn't even know what's coming her way.
It'd be like that last Seinfeld episode where they show all the people coming to the court case.
Oh my, well, I'm here to tell you that there are many male lawyers who are into spanking.
Would they help me?
Yes, they would.
What am I actually fighting? Because I didn't make the person disappear. They just happened to disappear when they left my house. So
they're going to be your defense attorney, and they're going to present their theory of the case and your alibi and all of that stuff to the jury. And then you're going to be okay, but you'll never be able to be seen in public again.
I would have to go back in my annals and I would have to look up every single person that I spanked and find them and have them come as character witnesses.
That's right.
And one by one, these girls would be walking up to the thing to talk, and they're going to see all these girls that have come to me, and people are going to be sitting in this audience going, what the hell is going on here?
And the prosecutor is going to say, and Miss So-and-so, would he ask you to wear anything in particular? And every girl is going to be like, yes, tight jeans.
That's not true. They ask me, is there something I would like them to wear? And I say, wear whatever you feel comfortable in. But personally, I love tight jeans and I love stretch shorts or the yoga pants.
Well, I'm my own girl, and I'm here to tell you that eventually when I see you in Central Florida, I am going to be in a dress.
Hey, wear whatever you want. Like I just said, AGS doesn't care. AGS wants you to feel comfortable. The only thing AGS asks is that you don't wear bloomers. Anyway, that was fun. I mean, there was a lot of hypothetical stuff there. But Dr. Eve, once again, it's been a great podcast, I think anyway. I mean, whatever people think out there. They did love when you came on and questioned me. They absolutely loved those episodes. And a lot of people found your voice very sexy.
Oh, well, that's nice to hear.
But Dr. Eve, I want to thank you once again for joining me from your closet to mine.
It was my pleasure.
I had a good time talking with you. We've had a lot of conversations that could have actually been podcast episodes.
It's true. We really have.
But anyway, thanks a lot for coming on tonight. Would you like to say anything to the people out there?
Just that it was a pleasure to participate again. Thank you for having me.
Say bye to everyone.
Bye, everyone.
All right, everyone. That's the end of yet another episode. And there will be one at some point. I'm not sure when. But right now, I plan on doing them every once in a while, not every month like I was doing it. I will see you next time. Have a good one, everyone.
Did you get a speeding ticket?
Call a good spankin'.
Are you a big procrastinator?
Call a good spankin'.
Do you need a general attitude adjustment?
Call a good spankin'.
Is your backside in need of a helping hand?
Call a good spankin'.
Call a good spankin' for all of your spanking and disciplinary needs.
Phone lines open now.
This is the smell of the leftover tuna fish sandwich you left in your lunchbox over the weekend in a wimpy trash bag.
Wimpy, wimpy, wimpy!
Blech! And this is the smell of that same sandwich in a hefty, ultra-strong trash bag.
Hefty, hefty, hefty!
Ah, smell the difference? Hefty Ultra Strong has Arm & Hammer with continuous odor control, so no matter what's inside your trash, you can stay one step ahead of stinky. And for bigger jobs, try the superior strength of Hefty Large Black Bags.